Hello everybody, welcome to Know Your Money. I'm Bronwyn Waner.
And I'm Craig Finch, and we are from Growth Financial Planning. We hope you enjoy our podcast. Hello everybody, in Growth Financial Planning, Bronwyn has developed a program which she takes her clients through. It's called the Flourish Blueprint. She ran a live session a few months ago, and she also ran an online session a few months ago called Flourish. Very interesting on how you develop this program. Bronwyn, it's been amazing to watch over the last year and a bit. Mm-hmm. Would you like to tell our viewers a little bit more about it? And we'll unpack it in the next few episodes because there's a credible amount of content which is very valuable.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Craig. Yeah, I thought it would be quite nice to just have some episodes to explain the journey that clients would go through when they do sign up for this type of planning. I feel that financial planning, there's two kind of ways. You go to a financial planner and they just sort of implement something. You tell them your budget and they just kind of make everything fit into what your budget is. Then there's a new way of doing financial planning where you kind of go and get a financial planning guide. So it will be a needs analysis. The financial planner spends a few meetings with you and tells you all the different things that you should have. So from all of that and the many years of doing financial planning in both of those ways, when I started out, it was like that. The client says to me, I have 1,000 Rand. I try to make everything fit into that 1,000 Rand and go with that. It didn't actually feel like planning. It felt more like selling. Then when I moved to Growth Financial Planning, it was like a whole new world opened up to me, and also doing my CFP, so Certified Financial Planning, you see the level and the detail that you need to go into and the way that you have to ask those questions. I also did the behavioral coaching program with Rob McDonald, which changed a lot of how I do things, and it showed me that one of the most important aspects of a client's financial plan is actually their behavior. Because I'm sure you also have some of those clients, Craig, that when something happens and an emotion is triggered within that client, their behavior wants to change. They want to reduce costs and pay off their bond, or they want to stop their RA. Can you relate to that?
Yeah, especially if the market moves and there's panic.
Yes.
Market came down, I better get out of this, get into cash and all those. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's a valid thing that a person goes through. But I believe our role as financial planners is to take a client through a journey, and at the end of that journey, they feel empowered to make the right decisions, to be able to hold it if they need to, because we've worked on regulating their emotions, understanding why they get triggered when the markets move. What is that underlying thing? So I thought maybe today I can just explain. There's the 7 steps that I would take a client through. So the first is to understand the Wheel of Wealth. I will go into a lot of detail of what the Wheel of Wealth is in another episode. But the Wheel of Wealth is used with the Wheel of Life. So the Wheel of Life is an amazing tool that helps you look at all the different aspects of your life and how to work on it. You've used that for how many years?
More than 20.
And I know that there are other financial planners that want to be like you. They want to have that holiday and money. I mean, your biggest saying is time and money. Do you think if you didn't have the Wheel of Life, that would be your reality?
No, definitely not. And, you know, we met Mike Williams a while back, and he's been my coach right the way through, and that's been the foundation of our every Friday session, complete drum it into your head drum. Because it takes a lot of work to understand the in-depth of it. I'm fascinated to hear about the Wheel of Wealth later episodes.
Thank you. And also just think what you said, there's also the key to this process. You are doing that and you are sticking to the Wheel of Wealth because you have a coach. You have that person in the corner. Yes, you are living your life. If you think of a tennis player, they're the ones playing the match, but the coach is the one sitting on the sideline, noticing what that person needs to work on, where their strengths lie, what their weaknesses are, and they can go back and say, listen, Craig, your backhand is not so great, but your forehand's amazing. Let's focus on that and try start playing to your strengths instead of your weaknesses. The financial planner is supposed to highlight that for you. Your weakness is that you spend, okay? How do we help you spend more intentional so that you have some left over to save? And that's what this process would do. And that's what the Wheel of Wealth basically does. It goes, okay, how are you tracking on all these things? How do you do with spending? How do you do with giving? How do you do with that? And we see. And from there, we go to the next step, which is work on your psychology of money and understand your internal financial parts. So we'll work on that psychology. Why do you always give? What does it mean to you to give? I don't think it's a bad thing, but it's got to be set with boundaries, for example. Like children, they are supposed to have some sweets and chocolates, but not all day. Otherwise, they'll be bouncing off the walls.
Yeah.
So yes, giving is important. All these elements of finances, if you're doing all of them, you feel calmer. So we'll go through that, and then in the journey, we just kind of discover, like, what does it mean to you to give? So I have a client who grew up really, really poor, and everybody always gave to them. So everybody always financially supported them. So when she got older, when other people gave, it made her feel loved. So now she gives and feels loved. So how do we teach her to also feel love when she saves for something for herself? And that's a journey we would go through. And internal financial parts, I'll also break that down in another episode. And step 3 is preparing for all versions of you. Because often people plan, I have a client now who is planning for the future version of him. So he is putting in a trust, he's starting things with the lawyers, and because he's so focused on that further version of him, he's impacting the version of him now. Because he's using all of his emergency fund, he's cashing out some of his investments to fund that one version of him. And it's not to say that's bad, but what we do need to realize is that many versions of us coexist and can coexist. So how do we balance that? And going through a process like this would help you discover that a bit further. Have you experienced that in any way with your clients where they just focus on one version of them or worry about one version of them?
Many times, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the next step is automation. So when you automate your debit orders and become conscious of your things, it automatically sort of happens. So if you don't automate it, you're never going to do it. If you get your money in and say, I'm going to put my holiday fund aside, and then you're supposed to manually transfer that holiday fund, it is not going to happen.
Yeah.
So we'd go through the journey of like, what automations do you need to set up? How do we look at that? Step 5 is, if you're doing this journey, you are with a provider, as in a financial planner, that's right. But I think the providers are really important. Are you with Alan Gray? Are you with, what's one of the other ones, a Bitcoin thing? Where are you? Is it regulated? Are you putting your money somewhere safe? So it would be discovering that. And then also making sure that the wrappers that you are using are correct. Because often people put all their money in their bank accounts and they don't realize the
tax implications. Really, it happens a lot.
And what other implications would a client experience if they left all their money in a bank account and not using other things?
Yeah, and then there's estate issues when transferring to if they pass away and the estate, the returns seem good, but you're going to be chopped with the tax. So there's many ways. The wrappers are very, very important.
And retirement annuities, all of that. So it's just, I think, empowering a client to understand
why they've got it. Yes, correct.
Yes. And then also so that they're empowered to keep making choices going forward. Step 6 is, I think, quite important. So allocating your funds to the correct time horizon. So what I mean by that is if you're trying to save for retirement, putting it in your bank accounts is not going to help.
Yeah.
Because it's a long-term investment. Maybe you can describe that a little bit about fund allocation and time horizon and why those two things are so important.
Well, the longer you have, we go back to compound interest and the snowball coming down the mountain, the longer time you have, you need to be in the stock market, locally and internationally, because that's it all in. You can take 100 years and even longer than that. That class of equity, stock market, shares, whatever everybody calls it, must be invested in the stock market because that is done better than any other asset class. It beats property, it beats cash, beats bonds. So the longer the time horizon, the more you have in the stock market. The shorter the time horizon, the more you have in cash because you can't afford ups and downs where the stock market goes up and down and you might have a rocky ride, but the rocky ride might give you it will give you a far better outcome over time. So the longer the time horizon, the more riskier, and it's not riskier because if you stay in for the time, it's not riskier, it's the right place to be because that stock market is done better than cash, just in simple terms.
You see, and what I often think is that advisors generally start here. So they start by telling the client about the asset allocation and the time horizon. But if they didn't start where we are starting with what is your fear about the markets? No, well, my grandparents lost absolutely everything in the market. No matter how much you say to that client about asset allocation and the importance of being in the stock market, absolutely nothing will change because that person is carrying those fears and worries and conditionings that we all have. So that's why I think this process is so valuable because you truly understand the client before you explain those things. And lastly is asset allocation is key to expanding and growing your wealth. So exactly what you said. That's where most of us start because as financial planners, we completely understand that. Where you are putting your money ultimately is so important. The retired version of you needs you to put your money into the market. And if you don't feel comfortable to do that because of all these underlying things, that version of you is going to be impacted. So that is, in a nutshell, the process that a client would go through in the Flourish Blueprint.
That's brilliant, Bron. Thanks for unpacking it for us. And I look forward to the other stages of it.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this podcast or would like to subscribe, please visit our website, www.growthfp.co.za. The information we have provided in this podcast is our personal opinion. For more detailed information, please discuss your financial situation with a financial planner.